Okay, reaction video. This is from the world according to Briggs. Top 10 cities nobody wants to move to. Uh, world according to Briggs, he does a lot of these type of videos about the United States, and I'm kind of curious to see what they are. I don't know. I've not seen this video before, so I'm gonna find out what he thinks.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to World According to Briggs and a look at cities nobody wants to move to. It's no secret that major cities are starting to lose their appeal. The lure of big city life has dropped significantly over the last decade or so. People are moving to small towns, suburbs, and even smaller cities. I ran a survey and asked people to pick 3 of the 50 largest cities in the US that they would never move to. I also ran a few polls on the community tab on this channel, and I kind of showed you guys the top 20 from the survey, and then you guys picked which ones you would never move to. I'm starting to learn whatever I get from the Google surveys is pretty similar to what you guys pick. A couple heads up on this video though. A few cities I thought for sure would have made this list didn't make the top 10. Places like Philly, Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland. I'll give you those stats.
Now, Philly, Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland. I've been to all 4 of those cities, and I would not move to any one of those. But they do have some appeal to them as well. So I can't really say I disliked either of the 4 cities. In fact, I'm going to be going to Baltimore next weekend. My cousin, God rest her soul, passed away, and I'm going to be going to a celebration of her life. But I wouldn't move there, but she actually loved it. She loved her time in Baltimore, and she lived there for most of her life.
Stats briefly after number 2 on this list. The second thing I want to tell you is about the comment section. If you read enough comments on YouTube, you know that political zealots need to leave comments, and they always bring it back to politics. They will point out that most of the cities on this list are run by Democrats. And
yes, that's one of the things they're going to say. It's run by liberals. Okay, now, again, a city chooses its own leadership, and that is what it is. I'm kind of curious to see how he describes the reasons why nobody wants to move to him. If that has anything to do with it, it doesn't sound like that's what he's going to say. But you will get the political zealots out there who will say they're run by liberals, run by Democrats, and we'll see how it works out.
Here's the thing, 90% of all medium or large cities in the US are Democrat controlled. So, of course, most will be Democrat controlled. Not saying anything bad about either party. And my point,
and all of them have the same, well, all of them seem to have the same problems, but let's see how it goes.
of view, they're both in bad shape. All right, let's see where nobody wants to join the rat race. Number 10, Phoenix. This one,
I just got back from Tempe, which is not too far from Phoenix, and yes, it's run by a Democrat. But you know what? I enjoyed my time in Tempe, and I can't say I was actually in Phoenix, but I enjoyed it, and I thought it was a very, very nice, looked like a nice place to live in Tempe, which, like I said, is about 20 minutes from Phoenix. So I was on the outskirts, so maybe I shouldn't be speaking like this.
surprised me. Phoenix is a decent city. Once you get past heat, they got a little bit of a homeless problem, but nothing compared to other major cities in the US. Their crime isn't as bad as other major cities either. In my opinion, I think it's losing its appeal because it's getting too crowded. It's kind of like Dallas and like Los Angeles was, San Francisco was, Portland was at some point, where they got really popular, too many people moved in, and then they became unpopular because too many people lived there. I think Phoenix is starting to feel that right now. 28% of the respondents said they would never move to Phoenix.
That could be it. That could be it. That's getting crowded because it was kind of crowded, like in Tempe. But again, I'm talking about Tempe. I'm not talking about Phoenix, so I'll shut my mouth.
Number 9, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Now, Las Vegas is crowded because of a lot of the tourists that come there.
Staying in the desert, we end up in Las Vegas. Vegas was another one that was extremely popular around 2000 on to about, I'd say 2015, when it started to slow down. This was a hot spot for a lot of Californians for a lot of years, and also young people from Utah.
And it still is.
In the late 90s, I have a lot of friends that work construction in the Los Angeles area, and they all moved to Sin City and started working there. But Las Vegas is not for everyone. It's got some crime issues. It's got some heat issues. Some people, like myself, just don't like living in the desert. 31% of the respondents said they would never move to Las Vegas. Number 8, Memphis, Tennessee. It's really hard to find many bad things about.
I've been to Memphis. Last time I was in Memphis was probably about 30 years ago. Um, it's like any other city. There are good parts and there are bad parts, but there seem to be more bad parts that I saw than good parts. But still, the good parts I did like.
About Tennessee until you start talking about Memphis. A few years back, I got a email from someone that works for the city of Memphis. I'd done a negative video about Memphis. They sent me this list of good things going on in Memphis. Now, you got crime, you got poverty, you got rundown areas of town, but this person sends me a list of how many new shaded bus stops they have. They gave me a list of little festivals they had going on, and then they pointed out that this place can't be that bad. They got Graceland and Bass Pro Pyramid. As great as those things sound, they're not enough to win over everyone. 35% of the respondents said they would never move to Memphis.
Again, of the 3 cities that I've seen so far, Phoenix, Memphis, and Las Vegas, I don't think they're necessarily bad cities. But yeah, that's my opinion. I certainly would not have a problem moving to around the Phoenix area. My nephew lives there, and he loves it there. Again, I've been to Vegas, and Vegas is very, very nice. And Memphis, like I said, the good parts of Memphis were really, really nice. Would have no problem moving to Memphis. But that's what other people seem to disagree.
Number 7, St. Louis, Missouri.
Only been to St. Louis one time, drove through it. You have the Arch, the gateway to the west, but a lot of bad parts in St. Louis.
Or Missouri. Depends on where you come from in the state. I really like Missouri, especially the area around the Lake of
I like Missouri too.
the Ozarks, which is in the southern section of Missouri. I'll go there anytime, especially if I want to eat at Big Dick's Halfway Inn. I'm really hoping that temporarily closed thing is just for the season, because that place is on my bucket list. So that's some of the good about Missouri. What's not too good is St. Louis. St. Louis has some nice things. They got great beer. They got the Arch. They do have some nice...
Yeah, what that just said, too dangerous for me. That's one of the things about St. Louis that I've heard. Like I said, I've only been through it once, drove through it. So I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but that's one of the things I've heard about St. Louis, that it's a dangerous city.
Neighborhoods. They got a lot of really crappy neighborhoods too, and I think that makes a lot of people not want to move there. 37% of the respondents said they would never move to St. Louis. Number 6, Portland, Oregon.
Never been to Portland, never been to Oregon, so I can't speak on this one.
How did they get on the list? How does a place that's called the City of Roses get on a list like this?
My guess is because they had a lot of last year, 2021, a lot of riots and in the city, and that is probably what led to this. That's my guess. I know there were a lot of riots. I heard about a lot of riots going on in the city, and people weren't being really protected a whole lot. So
maybe it has something to do with their other nickname, which is Stumptown. Portland, Oregon is a great city. They've got amazing nature, strip clubs, and more beer than any city should have. We also have rain, homeless, civil unrest, and a donut shop that people will stand in line.
Yeah, there you go.
For an hour to get a donut that...
I'm sitting online for an hour to get a donut. I've never heard of anything like that before. It must be a really damn good donut.
Has Captain Crunch on it. I just talked about this on our last video, which was top 10 states nobody wants to move to. Oregon was one of them. And I mentioned how I love Oregon and I love Portland. It's just more and more every single year. I'm becoming part of the minority of people that feel that way. Portland is a great city with a lot to offer. I just think in a lot of ways right now you should probably avoid it unless you have to come here.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Oregon. I certainly would love to see Portland, but right now it seems like it's a little bit too dangerous a place to go to. So I will not be making any plans to go to Oregon or to Portland anytime soon, but I still would like to visit it.
I always hope they'll return to their old glory, but they have some work to do. Now, if you watch certain news channels, you probably think that Portland was burned to the ground a couple...
He's probably talking about Fox News channel. And to be fair to Fox News, they weren't too far off, but they weren't completely on target either.
A couple summers ago during the riots, it really wasn't that.
again, I've never been there, so I don't know how bad the riots were. The way they made it sound like it was terrible. I've heard other people tell me it wasn't that bad, but hey,
big of a deal. It was bad. It wasn't that big of a deal, like I said. And when I say big deal, it was a major event, but it was condensed into like a 4 to 5 block area. But 30
either way, it still affected people's choice in this poll of cities nobody wants to move to.
8% of the respondents said they would never move to Portland, Oregon. Number 5, New York City.
I've been to New York City quite a few times. My mother was born and raised there in East Rockaway, which is on the island. Look, New York City is one of those places that if you've never been there before, I can understand why people who live there probably don't leave a 3 or 4 block radius, because everything you have is literally right there. It is an amazing city. There are amazing things to do and amazing things to see.
New York City used to be
It's also expensive as hell. It's also incredibly expensive to live there.
a punching bag for lists like this. I mean, it was way too crowded, way too expensive. There was a lot of problems going on in New York City, and now people, in a way, have kind of forgotten about it a little bit when it comes to things like this. Things are getting better in New York City. People are still leaving there, but it's getting better. And I think that's why they slid down to number 5 on a list like this. 38% of the respondents said they would never move to New York City.
Look, whether it's getting better or not, there's really no reason to move to New York City unless you have a lot of money. It's an incredibly expensive place to live, and again, that's I enjoy visiting it. Even though it was expensive, I still enjoyed my time in New York City. It's still an amazing city, an amazing place to go.
The reality is about 75% of us can't afford to live in New York City. Number 4, San Francisco,
Last time I was in San Francisco was 2012.
California. Again,
But then again, the whole state's an expensive place to live.
kind of surprised this one wasn't higher on the list. I would have picked it number 2 because they've got a lot of serious issues. It's overpriced. I mean, housing and cost of living. They have a homeless crisis that is so scary it keeps Freddy Krueger up at night. But they still got more people moving in than moving out. Why, you ask? Well, they got a lot of high-paying jobs. Sure, it's so expensive you could be making $90,000 a year and still need to get a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 roommates just to get by. And depending on where...
And that is true. You could be living in San Francisco making $90,000 a year and have to share a 2-bedroom. It's just incredibly expensive. The whole state's expensive. I wouldn't be surprised if Los Angeles finds its way onto this list as well. Just incredibly expensive. And yeah, the homeless problem is a problem.
Where you live in San Francisco, you're going to have to hose down your porch every single week or twice a week. 40% of the respondents said they would never move to San Francisco, California. Number 3, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Now, I've never been to Oklahoma City. The only person I've ever talked to, I met a guy I work with, I forget his name. No, his name is Phil. That's right. And he loved Oklahoma City.
Are you as shocked as I am? I never would have picked this one out.
I don't think I would have picked this one either.
Oklahoma City's got its issues and it's a little boring, but it's not a terrible place to live. Now, I just said it's a little boring, and I promise you there'll be comments in the comment section talking about how I've never...
Maybe that's what the reason is because what this malicious discontent is saying, Oklahoma City is in the middle of nowhere and has absolutely nothing to offer in terms of culture or fun. Again, can't speak to that, but okay.
Experienced a really good monster truck show or something like that. And if that's what you were going to comment, stop typing. I've never enjoyed a monster truck show. 41% of the respondents said they would never move to Oklahoma City. Number 2, Chicago, Illinois.
Now, this doesn't surprise me either. You've had the big 3 cities in the United States are New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Chicago, I've been to Chicago quite a couple of times. Last time I was in Chicago was last summer. I enjoyed it. It's expensive, but again, I enjoyed it. I had a good time there. It's really, the South Side is what is probably the big turnoff when it comes to Chicago because it's probably the murder capital of the United States. But if you use common sense, you'll be fine in Chicago. But still, I did the river tour, the architecture tour, which was nice. I went to the world's biggest Starbucks and went to Millennium Park. Went up to the Sears Tower. I know it's not called the Sears Tower anymore, but look, I enjoyed my time in Chicago.
Yes, no negative city list would be complete without an appearance by Chicago, everyone's favorite dumping ground for bad stats. Like I've said before, Chicago has a lot of really nice neighborhoods. It's just too bad that a few neighborhoods are really bringing down the stats.
Whoever thinks Memphis is better than Chicago is absolutely delusional. Different strokes, different folk. Doesn't make them delusional.
For the entire city. Well, that was until the last year or so. It used to be like, I'd say 5 or 6 neighborhoods you should probably avoid at all costs. Now that's getting closer to 7 or 8. It's just gotten a little bit worse. Now, another strange thing, some of the nicer neighborhoods and suburbs on the north side of Chicago, they're actually getting even better, while the south side's getting even worse. I don't know, I still love Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities to visit. The pizza, the people, just the city in general, it's a great city. It's too bad.
Again, it is a nice city to visit if you use common sense. But it's the south side that probably has people turned off on it.
Yeah, nobody wants to move there. 45% of all respondents said they would never move to Chicago.
Now, I'm guessing here that number 1 will be Los Angeles. Okay, and I'm going to I don't think it's going to be Miami. I don't think it's going to be New Orleans. And I could be wrong on that. But I think it's going to be Los Angeles.
All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link down below. Now, here's the cities that most people probably think should have made the list, but didn't. 22% of the respondents said Philadelphia is not a city for them. Cleveland was also 22%. Baltimore was 24%. And Detroit almost made the list. They were number 11 at 27% said they would never move.
Maybe the people thought it was too easy to pick those cities. I don't know. Look, there's a lot to dislike about all 4 of those cities. But like I said, I've been to all 4. And there's a lot to like about these cities. I can't really say I had bad experience in either one of these cities. I'm not eager to move there, which is what the purpose of this video is. But I really, didn't have anything bad to say about as far as visiting them was concerned.
Move there. This kind of shows you that it's not just crime and poverty that make people not want to move to a city. Sometimes it's situations like Oklahoma, where it's just boring to most people, or the fact that it's in the state of Oklahoma. And Phoenix, that's another one. I think the main reason people don't want to move to Phoenix is the heat, because it's not a bad place to live. Strange.
Yeah, I can, and I get as far as Phoenix, which I've never been to. I've been to, I'm going to stop talking about Phoenix now.
I know. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Los Angeles, California. Yeah.
I was right. Los Angeles, California. That's the place. Now I was born in Long Beach, and I have a cousin who lives in Culver City. So I went to 2016, 17, 18, 19. I visited Los Angeles, and believe you me, I can understand why people don't want to live. I've said this before, and I'll say it again to people who know me. I said it's a great place to visit. I just don't want to live there. It is expensive as all hell, and they now have a homeless crisis as well. It is not a safe place to live.
I'm a little shocked at this one. California's been dodging some stat bullets in recent years. I mean, they always showed up, but they were never at number 1 when it comes to bad stats. Their crime is bad, but there's worse cities in the United States when it comes to crime stats. Same thing with cost of living and housing. There are much more expensive cities than Los Angeles. But I think when you take everything into consideration...
If you wrap it all up into a ball, okay, and a lot of these, 10 cities nobody wants to move to, I'm wondering if people who are voting on these are people who've never lived in these cities. Now, never Los Angeles. Dallas is the only city on this list. I would seriously consider moving to. Kansas City Dallas wasn't on the list. Kansas City wasn't on the list either. Is quite bad, but if the crime rate was a little lower, it would be right up there with Dallas. Okay, fair enough. But again, Los Angeles it's probably a combination of all those things put together.
Cost of living, cost of housing, air quality, homeless situation, traffic, and throw it all into that big blender.
Looks like Venice Beach down there.
In people's brains, Los Angeles rises to the top of places you don't want to move to.
And the Griffith Park Observatory, I've been there before.
47% of the respondents said they would never move to Los Angeles, California.
And you can't really, you can't look. A lot of the places on this list, I can't really say I blame them. I mean, like I said, my cousin lives in Culver City, and I get many times have I been to Los Angeles. It's all common that there's good parts, there's bad parts, and the people in charge are not making it better. And it's easy to point the finger at somebody instead of coming up with solutions yourself. It is what it is. Okay. But again, of all these cities, whoever's in charge, whoever's in control, and they are mostly Democrats. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pointing my finger at them. There are good parts of these cities. There are good parts of every city. And I've been to all these cities with the exception of Oklahoma City and Portland. And I found good things in each one of these cities. But when you're saying they're a nice place to visit, I just don't want to live there. And that tells you something. So, hey, this was interesting. I can't really say I disagree with a whole lot of it, but it was definitely interesting, and I enjoyed it. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And till next time, please click like, subscribe, and share. And have a good rest of your day.